Good morning. This is Dacre Spencer from the Spencer Firm, and I'm back with a new video for you. I wanted to talk today about the overtime laws. If you are someone that are questioning whether or not you're being paid properly, today's session is going to cover that. Now, before I get started, I want to make sure that I say that the information that I'm providing today is not legal advice. You should consult with an attorney. If you are in the Maryland or DC area, you are welcome to contact my firm for a consultation to go over the specifics and details of your particular case. Now, in regards to overtime law and wage and hour, I should say, there are many violations that happen where people don't know about it. Misclassification is one. Some people believe that they are salaried employees, and so they think that they don't have to be paid overtime. And there are salaried employees, and there are exemptions that allow an employer to not pay overtime to the people who are truly salaried employees. However, if you are in manual labor work and you are being paid a salary or a day rate, be aware, make sure that the hours that you are working, when you do the math, that you are not being taken advantage for a minimum wage violation. And also, if you're working more than 40 hours in a week and you are paid a salary and you're doing manual labor, then you also are going to be entitled to overtime. Okay, and overtime is time and a half pay of your hourly rate. Now in the Maryland and DC area, there are different hourly rates set for the minimum wage. Okay, you want to make sure that when you divide the total of what you're paid by the hours that you actually work, not your schedule, the hours that you actually worked, that you are being paid more than the minimum wage. And also, if you are working more than 40 hours in a work week, typically there are some exceptions to these rules, but in general, if you are working more than 40 hours per work week in the Maryland, DC area, and you are not being paid time and a half for the hours that are past the 40 hours that you've worked in a week, and you do manual labor work, so you're working with your hands, you are doing work, you're actually working, then there's likely the chance of a violation of the law. And now in this area, in Maryland in particular, let's talk about Maryland and DC. You can go back 3 years, okay? Meaning if you're working and you realize that this is a violation, or you left an employer, right, today, and you realize that they were not paying you overtime, or they were not paying you the minimum wage, or they were not paying you properly, or they didn't pay you your last check. There are many violations, but let's stick with the overtime. Let's go back to it. You realize you weren't being paid overtime, okay? You can go back 3 years in Maryland, all right? You can go back 3 years to tally up what you're owed. In our firm and other law firms that practice this sort of law, which is wage and hour law, they can do a calculation if you're qualified, to determine how much you're owed, okay? Once you determine how much you're owed, once we determine how much you're owed, or your lawyer determines how much you're owed, there are penalties that are assessed. So there's a federal law that governs overtime, which is called the Fair Labor Standards Act, okay? There are also local and state wage and hour laws as well. Now in Maryland, you can go back 3 years and you can collect up to 3 times the amount that you were owed. Now, if we're negotiating a settlement for you, of course, it's not going to be, we're going to demand 3 times the amount, but a reasonable settlement is not going to be 3 times the amount, but that's the maximum. And you do have to prove certain elements to be able to get the maximum in court, okay? But you can get up to 3 times the amount in Maryland. In the federal law, the FLSA, you can get double damages. All right. And these laws also pay for your attorney fees, meaning your attorney, the time that your attorney works is also going to be something that you can ask for the employer to pay. All right, it's fee shifting. So most of these cases are done at a contingency or a hybrid contingency with their clients, so that the attorney can take from whatever the total is that they get for you. Sort of like the personal injury cases that everybody is familiar with. Now, employment law primarily is not a contingency type of law to practice. Most of the attorneys, I should say, in employment law are not doing contingencies, with the exception of wage and hour. And when I say most, I'm talking about in the area that I'm in. It may be different in California and other jurisdictions, but in the jurisdiction that I'm in, from what I know, most attorneys charge for the employment discrimination cases in general, unless there's a really, really strong, solid case. Everyone thinks they have one of those too, by the way, but we'll talk about that at another session. But for the wage and hour and the overtime, those are your damages. You can get up to 3 times the amount. So if you're owed $10,000, we ask for $30,000, and sometimes it'll settle somewhere in the middle there. Okay, and actually we ask for $30,000 plus your legal fees, and so everything kind of tallies up to a little bit more than that. If you have questions about this and you're wondering if there's a violation, there are resources online where you can kind of read this information. You can give us a call. If you are in the Maryland, D.C. area, feel free to call my firm. The information is going to be posted below. All right. I hope that this video was of value to you. Please make sure also that you are documenting your hours worked. If your employer is not giving you a stub with the hours that you worked, and there's no other evidence that you work there, or that you have these hours that you work, start writing it down, because that becomes helpful in a case. It becomes a little more complicated when there's absolutely no evidence to show that you worked overtime. All right, take care. I'll be looking forward to the next video. Take care, hit subscribe, and I'll have more valuable information for you in the future. If anyone has something that they want me to talk about, please put it in the comments and I will consider it. All right, thank you.